The hall was scented with lilies and bathed in golden light when the day Carla had dreamed of since childhood, the day she vowed to walk beside Daniel for the rest of her life, began to bend along a curve neither of them saw coming. Everything seemed perfect. The orchestra tuned up with a flutter of soft strings, photographers captured slow-motion smiles, and the crystal dome sifted the morning like a reliquary of glittering sparks. Yet in the dimness of a side corridor, Lucía, Daniel's younger sister, glided her fingers across her phone screen with the precision of a surgeon who knows exactly which artery to cut so the heart pumps panic. With a half smile, she typed the message that would blow the celebration apart from within. "Haven't you heard? Carla was already pregnant when she met Daniel. Ask Aunt Clara. She'll confirm." In seconds, the rumor flew like a bat's wing among curious cousins, aunts who never keep quiet, and neighbors hungry for drama. Each time someone repeated it, they added another drop of poison, that Daniel had no idea, that the baby belonged to an old lover, that maybe the wedding was a trick to inherit the family house. Meanwhile, Carla walked down the central aisle, her silk veil floating over a murmur she mistook for excitement, unaware that those admiring faces and a few evasive eyes were looking through a different lens. They spoke their vows, sealed. The kiss and applause thundered as if nothing were amiss, but the fuse was already burning beneath the marble altar. On the steps outside, Lucía hugged her brother with feigned tenderness and slipped him a congratulations that sounded like a cracked trumpet while waves of guests whispered, "Does he know?" What nerve, poor Daniel. The photographer asked the newlyweds to raise their glasses for the classic first toast shot. Carla lifted her champagne with a steady hand, unaware that 5 rows back a gossip-prone cousin was counting. How many weeks showed in her belly? The rumors reached the reception hall before the bride and groom. One aunt crossed herself. Another remarked that the dress was too tight to hide anything. A cousin bet the honeymoon would end in a maternity ward. In the midst of that tide, Lucía walked like the star guest of her own play, stoking the fire with sly comments. Well, everyone chooses their happiness. What matters is that Daniel loves her. When the master of ceremonies called for silence, the music faded, the murmur died, and Carla smiled from the dais, ready to thank everyone for coming. Then Aunt Eugenia, emboldened by curiosity and a couple of glasses of wine, raised her hand and dropped the question that split the afternoon in two. "Carla, dear, do you already know when the baby is due?" The word baby struck the crystal chandeliers and made them tremble. Silence thickened like syrup. Daniel frowned, Carla gasped for air, and Lucía, behind her glass, feigned wide-eyed surprise. "I'm sorry, Aunt. I don't understand," the bride stammered. But it was too late. Whispers sprouted from every table and heads swiveled toward Lucía. The aunt insisted, "Don't worry, it's a blessing. We just wanted to be sure you're taking care of yourself." Carla felt her heart slide down her spine. She turned to Daniel, who, pale, asked, "What are they talking about?" No one answered because everyone was staring at the same person, Lucía, suddenly trapped in a torch of accusatory eyes. I only repeated what I heard," she muttered, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Daniel stepped off the stage. With heavy strides, seized his sister's hand, and his voice cracking with anger, demanded, "Was it you?" Lucía tried to deflect. "Nothing, Danny. It's surely a misunderstanding." But Aunt Eugenia stood up. "You sent me that message this morning." The hall roared with a collective, "Oh!" Carla, taking a deep breath, opened her small mother-of-pearl clutch, pulled out an envelope, and raised it like a shield. Fertility test results from a clinic, proof that she and Daniel had been trying unsuccessfully to conceive for months. She had planned to surprise him on their honeymoon with a treatment, but now those papers became her lifeline. "This is the truth," she declared with the steady voice of someone rescuing her dignity from the mud. She walked among the tables, handing copies to parents, aunts, disbelieving friends. One by one they read the official ink, and doubt died. In their pupils, rage then shifted like a spotlight onto Lucía. The master of ceremonies, mute witness, tried to restart the music, but Grandma Rosa, the 80-year-old matriarch, seized the microphone before the first chord could soothe the tension. With a thunder-laced voice, she reminded everyone that their family names stood on honor and respect, that a malicious rumor was worse than a debt, and that without trust, no union could thrive. She pointed at Lucía and demanded a public apology for staining your brother's most sacred day. Lucía swallowed hard, looked for her mother, her father, an ally. None appeared. She tried to speak, but only an unrecognizable whimper escaped. Words lodged in her throat when she realized even the waiters stared at her with reproach. Carla, voice still trembling from the blow, stepped forward and with calm born of the wound said, "I forgive you, but from this moment your invitations to our photos, tomorrow's family dinner, and the group honeymoon are cancelled. We need to heal without poison around us." Spontaneous applause erupted. The orchestra resumed a waltz, and the newlyweds, determined not to let a rumor's shadow ruin their union, embraced for the dance. As the circle of guests revolved around them, Lucía slipped into a corner, feeling the walls close in like a social coffin, realizing with each heartbeat that her name would be tattooed to scandal for years. The DJ cranked up the volume. Lights spun in blue and gold flashes, and the wedding was reborn stronger, perhaps because truth freshly defended shone brighter than any lamp. Daniel, breathing deeply, whispered in Carla's ear that he loved her more than ever, that he was sorry he hadn't protected her sooner. She replied that love is measured precisely by the battles it survives. They toasted, this time for real, while guests clinked glasses and Aunt Eugenia, now ashamed of her meddling, begged pardon with a squeeze of the hand. Near midnight, fireworks painted the sky and people hugged beneath the rain of sparks, celebrating not just a wedding, but the triumph of truth over malice. Lucía, sitting alone at a corner table, watched the lights dance across the crystal ceiling, and understood that while words can set a party ablaze in seconds, the enforced silence that follows can scorch the soul far longer. And so, in that final scene, for the first time in her life, the laughter of others sounded distant, and the echo of her own shame imposed a sentence no family outcry could rival. The reception hall shimmered beneath chandeliers the size of moons, each crystal prism scattering glitter across cream-colored tablecloths and towering floral arrangements. A jazz trio eased into a mellow groove while waiters glided through the candle-lit haze balancing silver trays of champagne. The newlyweds had barely crossed the threshold when the murmur, already swollen with speculation, raced ahead of them to every corner of the room. Carla sensed a subtle tension in the air. Smiles. That felt brittle, eyes that flickered away a second too fast, but chalked it up to ordinary wedding nerves. She squeezed Daniel's hand and floated toward the head table, unaware the rumor was now coursing through the crowd like electricity hunting for ground. Forks chimed against crystal. The trio fell silent, and the master of ceremonies invited everyone to raise their glasses. Carla stood radiant beneath the chandelier glow, ready to thank each guest for sharing her joy, when Aunt Eugenia rose unsteadily, cheeks rosé from too many refills. "Carla, dear," she called, voice wobbling through the hush, "do you already know when the baby is due?" The word baby ricocheted off crystal and silver, shattering the calm. A collective intake of breath tightened the room like shrink wrap. Chair legs creaked as bodies leaned forward to catch the bride's reaction. Carla's pulse rocketed. I'm sorry, Aunt," she managed, her voice a note plucked too hard. Daniel turned, confusion seeping into dread as stray whispers. "Rose, She's denying it, but Lucía said, "You mean it's not true?" At that name, Lucía, dozens of eyes wheeled toward the bridesmaid in emerald satin. She stood dead center on the dance floor, champagne flute trembling just enough to betray. Daniel's stare became a laser. He descended the dais in 3 strides, seized his sister's wrist and hissed, "Did you start this?" Lucía tried to laugh it off. "It was only a joke, Danny." But the quiver in her tone detonated every doubt in the room. Aunt Eugenia's voice sliced through. "You texted me this morning. You said Carla was already showing." The hall erupted in an astonished, "Oh!" That rattled the flutes. Carla, shaking yet resolute, unclasped her mother-of-pearl clutch and drew a snow-white envelope stamped with hospital insignia. Fertility test results she had planned to reveal privately on their honeymoon as the first step in a journey she and Daniel longed for. "This is the truth," she declared, voice steady now. "We've tried for months to conceive, with no success yet. Your rumor is a lie." She passed the documents to her in-laws, to wary cousins, to the nearest skeptics, and watched their faces melt from suspicion to shame as the printed facts settled in. Anger rebounded and fixed on Lucía like a searchlight. The MC reached for music, but before the first note escaped, Grandma Rosa, 80 years of spine and steel, rose. With deliberate grace, commandeered the microphone and filled the hush with storm cloud authority. "Our family stands on honor," the matriarch thundered. "A lie can bankrupt us faster than any debt. Lucía, apologize now for defiling your brother's sacred day." The crowd parted, leaving Lucía nowhere to hide. She swallowed, searching desperately for sympathetic eyes and finding none. A strangled whimper escaped her throat. I'm sorry, Carla, Daniel, everyone," she rasped, but the apology felt fragmented, brittle, like porcelain glued too late. Carla stepped forward, strength drawn from raw hurt turned resolute calm. "I forgive you," she said, voice ringing clear, "but healing needs distance. You are excluded from tonight's photos, tomorrow's brunch, and our group honeymoon. Plans, we refuse to drink from a cup you've poisoned." Applause burst, staccato at first, then rolling, cathartic. The trio struck a waltz. Carla and Daniel took the floor, reclaiming the night with each graceful pivot, guests clapping in a widening ring of solidarity. Lucía slipped into a far corner, sank onto an empty chair, and watched party lights strobe across linens. Each flash a reminder of her self-inflicted exile. Yet the night, like any story worth telling, refused to settle. As the waltz swirled, the lights flickered, dimmed, then snapped off completely. An abrupt plunge into darkness that drew a collective gasp. Somewhere in the blackout a glass shattered, and the faint whine of a circuit breaker surrendering bled through the music's cut-off. Emergency sconces blinked scarlet. A voice near the bar shouted that the generator outside had failed. Another voice, closer, insisted it had been tampered with. In the sudden red gloom, Daniel reached for Carla, but she was gone, swept sideways by the surge of confused guests. Panic rippled like heat. Someone screamed that an elderly uncle had stumbled. Another yelled for flashlights. Lucía, half hidden behind a pillar, clutched her phone and tapped furiously, thumbs dancing as if firing a last-ditch flare into cyberspace. A cousin named Miguel, tech-savvy, suspicious by nature, had trailed her earlier and now seized the opportunity. He snatched the phone from her hands. The screen displayed a group chat titled "Wedding Bombshells." Lines of text revealed Lucía's step-by-step plan. Spread rumor, leak to Aunt Eugenia, ensure confrontation during toast, film Daniel's meltdown for social media clout. Miguel's stomach lurched. Emergency lights flickered up just long enough for him to see Lucía's face blanch white. He pocketed the device and pushed through the crowd toward the stage, where Daniel was using his phone's flashlight to locate Carla. Carla, meanwhile, had steadied Uncle Raphael near the dessert table and was now shepherding lost older relatives towards seats. When Daniel reached her, Miguel arrived moments later with Lucía in tow, arm locked around her elbow. "Read it," Miguel said, handing Daniel the phone. The hall fell into an eerie hush, broken only by the crackle of a portable PA system restarting. Daniel scanned the chat log, each message a hammer blow. "Wait until the toast. Make sure the cameras are rolling. If she cries, zoom in on the mascara streaks. Daniel's face will go viral." A tremor of outrage buzzed through Daniel's jaw. He clicked on an attached video thumbnail and with a surreal chill watched a covert selfie of Lucía whispering into the camera minutes before the ceremony. "Stay tuned, about to blow this." Perfect facade apart. He raised the phone overhead so nearby relatives could see. Gasps formed a sound wall. Miguel toggled the PA to broadcast mode, patched in the audio, and Lucía's recorded whisper slithered through every speaker. Shock sucker punched the crowd. Carla's knees wobbled, but she forced herself upright, eyes glassy yet blazing. Grandma Rosa reclaimed the microphone, her earlier fury now volcanic. "Enough!" she boomed, voice slicing through the murk. "Lucía, you leave this place at once." Before security could even move, Lucía broke free, bolted for the side door, and vanished into the moonlit garden. For a beat, no one breathed. Then a distant splash punctured the silence. Lucía, in panic, had run straight into the reflecting pool beyond the terrace. When helpers hauled her out, drenched and shivering, the hum of humiliation settled over her like wet cement. Daniel closed his eyes, fighting an ache that felt deeper than betrayal, and whispered to Carla, "I kept thinking I could protect you from everything, but who protects us from family?" Carla cupped his cheek, offered a tremulous smile, and answered, "We protect each other, starting now." Power returned with a snap. Chandeliers flared to life, their crystals now refracting a clearer, sharper light. In that brightness, Miguel approached the couple again, tugging a folded printout from his jacket. "I ran a quick trace," he said. She'd scheduled a live stream with a monetization link. This wasn't thoughtless gossip. It was a stunt to cash in on viral drama. Daniel's shoulders sagged under fresh dismay, but Carla straightened, eyes gathering resolve. "Then we finish tonight on our terms," she said. She and Daniel climbed the stage, microphones calibrated, and addressed the hall together. Carla speaking first, her voice steady as a plucked harp. She told the true story of their fertility struggle, the hope contained in that envelope, the pain of deception, and the choice to stand, not crumble. Daniel followed, acknowledging his sister's spiraling need for attention, but drawing a line in granite. Rumor had no place here. Love and accountability would write the family's next chapter. The crowd answered with a rising cheer that shook dust from the rafters. An aunt who had once whispered leaned forward and asked for forgiveness. A cousin volunteered to drive Lucía home after she changed and calmed down, if she dared come back inside. Musicians resumed with renewed vigor, drums kicking a heartbeat, under velvet horns, and light poured like liquid gold over guests who suddenly remembered how to celebrate. Carla and Daniel danced again, slower now, foreheads together, while outside in the garden Lucía sat wrapped in a borrowed blanket staring at her ruined phone, its shattered screen mirroring every fracture inside her. Midnight detonated overhead in an artillery of fireworks, but Carla saw only Daniel's eyes, reflecting ruby, emerald, sapphire bursts. She realized the night, wounded, chaotic, thrumming with raw edges, had revealed something unbreakable, their capacity to withstand storm and sabotage alike. When the final spark faded and silence settled, she whispered a vow no officiant had required. "Whatever comes, we stay luminous." Guests departed in waves, leaving trails of laughter and faint perfume, while staff gathered candle stubs and empty flutes. Grandma Rosa kissed Carla's forehead, proud tears trembling in her lashes. Miguel handed back the confiscated phone and promised to wipe every trace of the live stream. In the deserted ballroom's hush, Daniel and Carla lingered beneath a single chandelier, humming like a captive star. He traced the faint smear of mascara at her cheekbone, evidence of tears, shed but not of defeat, and said, "The world tried to reroute our story tonight." Carla placed his hand over her heart, pulse steady beneath his palm. "Let it try," she answered, steel threading through velvet. "We write the ending." And somewhere beyond the empty tables, beyond the extinguished candles and the echoing notes of a music box someone had forgotten to wind down, the future flexed its wings, unwritten, unrumored, fiercely bright.